Welcome to Stock Charts Trading. Today we're going to be talking about 7 ways to find support and resistance. So first you have a horizontal line, and it's just kind of based off of the highs and lows of a chart. And so you can see that we have some lows back here, and so we're just going to draw this horizontal line to come across, and that is one way that we're going to be discussing over many charts on how to find support and resistance. The next way is a diagonal line. So it's kind of the same way. Based off of highs and lows, you would just come across here. You have a high, you have another high, you have another high. And so you would just kind of take your diagonal line and draw that in, and you would see that as price comes up, this is resistance, price comes down, price comes back up, and it is resistance. And that continues all the way on to these extreme highs over here. Price came up, it broke through, came back down, hit resistance, fell off, almost hit resistance here, fell off. And so diagonal lines are great lines to use for support and resistance. We also have channel lines. And so channel lines come across, so you do this on the bottom side of it, and we can see that you have support here, you have support here, you have support here, support here. You broke that support, and so now this channel is basically in a different direction. And so you would come across with your new lows, and you would probably say something along the lines of this here and create a new downward channel based off of your highs and lows. Of course, we're going to break this all down and talk about it. Next is going to be target lines. So target lines, like diagonal lines, are highs and lows, but they're not necessarily as channels. So you'd come off of this here, you'd have a small channel, then you'd have a longer up channel, then you'd have a down channel, and then you have this long up channel here. We're not going to talk about this intermediate channel. We're going to take the highs from the top of this channel to the highs of this channel. We're just going to come across, and we can see that there's multiple places that we hit new highs and lows. For this point, you hit resistance here, it fell back off. It was a confirmation with this diagonal channel. And then you come in, you find support, right? So you see this candlestick right here, hits, bounces off. This candlestick here, hits, bounces off. This candlestick, this one breaks through, comes down to this other line of support, which was the diagonal channel. And then here you can see that price is above this diagonal trend line right now. And so these work really well. Next, we're going to talk about Fibonacci. Fibonacci also is a support and resistance line. As you can see, we come off of this low, we go up to this high, we bring it across, and you can see price comes down to this 38% retracement Fibonacci, and it acts as support. It confirms this diagonal line, and price goes up from there. You can also see that we have in the red is these Fibonacci extension lines, which price came up to this 71% extension line and then sold off. It also confirmed with this diagonal line. Next, we're going to be talking about is moving averages. So with moving averages, we have there's different numbers you can use on moving averages. You can use 30, you can use 50, you can use 100, you can use anything in between. You can use 200. So we're just going to take a look right now. Again, you can see that on this green moving average line, price comes down, it bounces off of it, and so that acts as a place of support. You can see right here, price came down, it touched that acts as a price of support. Here it came down, but it broke through. So this was not a good confirmation for this. It did find support here off of this low and this low for the diagonal, and then went back up. So next, we're going to be talking about patterns. I know it's a lot, but just bear with me because we're going to break all of this down. So patterns are interesting because, like here, you have a descending triangle, right? So price comes up, it hits, it makes a low, it comes up and bounces back off. And so you can see this kind of descending triangle, price breaks out. And so the reason that we're saying this, these patterns are support and resistance because of this diagonal line here. It's not a channel, the channel would come more, it would come across here, and then you'd have another line for the top that would be perfectly symmetrical to the bottom line, and that would be a channel. But you can see this one arches up. It doesn't go quite down to the bottom of what potentially would be a channel line. It starts to move upward a little bit. So if you were to try to use a channel, you'd say, well, price doesn't come down to the channel for me to get in. And the reason would be is because it's starting to do something different. Same like here, you can see that we have a little flag pattern coming into play. So we come up, we have resistance, 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 we break out. And so this flag pattern acted as a support line, or you can see that we have kind of this horizontal support line in there. Again, you are looking at a flag pattern here with this horizontal bottom. And so it's not a true channel. It's not a singular line. It's two lines that make up. They come into pennants. They're wedges. And of course, we're going to talk about probably W patterns also as we get into patterns. The next thing is there's a thing called ABCD pattern. So with ABCD pattern, also you basically have a here, you've got a B here, and with an A and B D pattern, you have basically preset ranges. So from A to B goes up. If you take that and you duplicate that, that range should come up right into this pattern here. Pulls back. Here becomes the C leg of this ABCD pattern. And then, of course, the finish on D. So if you see that the line right there that I drew back here haphazardly comes up perfectly into this D, which is basically resistance, and it falls back off. Another pattern that we're going to talk about is the Elliott Wave. The Elliott Wave is a 5-step pattern. Basically, you have leg 1 right here, comes down. I'll go ahead and draw it out so you can see it. So you have a leg 1 that comes down, you have a leg 2 that comes across, you have a leg 3, you have a leg 4 with some resistance, and then this tail I like to call leg 5. So let me number them out for you. You have leg 1, which is this first down. Leg 2 is a pullback, counter trend trade. Leg 3 is usually the longest of all the legs. And you can see there's even a little pattern in this leg 3. Leg 4 is a pullback, and then of course you have the sell-off tail, leg 5. So once it comes in, you have that. So even look here, you have another Elliott Wave. I'm going to change the color on this, but we basically have we're going to go leg 1, I'm going to do it with a channel line, so that way it's a little bit wider. So there's a leg 1, here's a leg 2, here's a leg 3, here's a leg 4, and then a leg 5. So you can even see that within this number 3 leg, there was another Elliott Wave. Elliott Wave and ABCD patterns are huge, and that's why we're going to show you what it means to read a Elliott Wave or an ABCD pattern, because it will help with support and resistance. So if we're looking at 7 different ways to read support and resistance, you should have a pretty good confirmation of where you are, what price is doing, where you should buy, where you should exit. All of these things that we're going to teach on support and resistance should give you the confidence to be able to break open a sloppy chart and say, what is this thing really saying? Because when we look at it, we say, oh my gosh, we have this huge down sell right now. Where is it going to stop? Where can I get in? When is the pain going to stop on my 401k? The first thing I would say is, here is a horizontal support line. And price started to bounce back up. Now, is it going to go back up to $90. You know, where's the market going to go? Is the Dow Jones going to go back up to 30? Is it going to go back up to 60,000? And all of that can be broken down with support and resistance. So stay tuned with us as we break open each one of these segments and show you the truth about it. We're not going to be very analytical in the actual precision of things, but I think you'll see the systematically how this works, and you'll be able to build confidence in the way that you trade because you'll be able to see how things are broken down. Until next time.